Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of the Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
As business attorneys for healthcare practices, we meet a lot of interesting people and learn their amazing stories. This season's theme is the future of wellness, where longevity, advanced weight loss solutions, and anti-aging innovations collide. Get ready for insights from the people driving the evolution of the medical industry.
Well, Michael, I'm excited to bring on our guest for the show. When we talk about wellness, we get a ton of questions about malpractice coverage, and our guest today will be able to help better understand these issues.
I'm excited too, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, Brad. I read an article recently, ironically around Valentine's Day, that I think you will find interesting.
Was this Valentine's Day article very popular because it talked about mascots all across the country?
I can assure you that I will not be bringing mascot talk to our opening conversation. You have way over leveraged that conversation topic. I brace myself, in fact, every time you bring it up.
Well, I guess I should brace myself because if we're getting to Valentine's Day talk, I'm kind of nervous about that.
Well, this article was a survey on the top breakup foods by state, and the answers were based on Google Trends search data.
Well, that does sound like the opposite of Valentine's Day, and breakup foods, I don't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it is a thing, Brad. So I'm going to do a little test.
Okay.
I picked a handful of states. We've got our guest state in here, but I've got 5 states, and I'm going to see if you can guess the breakup food, the most popular breakup food for that state.
Okay.
Number 1, Texas.
Tacos.
You're actually right. Number 2, Louisiana, where you're from.
Crawfish.
You're not right.
Oh.
Cake.
Cake.
Yes.
Crawfish cake?
No.
Okay.
No, it didn't even say king cake.
Okay.
Number 3, Washington.
D.C. or state?
State.
Hummus?
Cookies.
Okay. All right.
All right. Number 4, Illinois.
I'm going to go home of the big giant pizza from Chicago.
Wrong again, Brad. Popcorn.
Popcorn.
Yes.
Well, it starts with a P. Pizza, popcorn, same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You started off strong and are failing.
Failing fast.
Number 5, in our last state, North Carolina.
Hamburgers?
Nope.
Okay.
Milkshakes.
Hamburgers and milkshakes?
And then if you have a guess, the most popular breakup food across the country, what do you think?
Beer?
Wrong. Milkshakes.
Oh, beer's not probably well, I guess milkshake's a food.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you, Brad, because this is last century, so it's been a while since you've had a breakup. But do you know what your breakup food was?
Dude, I haven't broken up with anyone in like over 30 years. So it had to be college. So in college, I had no money. So I'm going to either go with a burger or beer. How about you?
Miller Lite, 100%. And it's also been a long time.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
All right, you ready to bring on today's guest?
Let's bring our guest on.
Yeah.
Joining us today is someone we have referred clients to for many years. He's a specialist in his industry, Jason Kunz. He is the Senior Account Executive at NFP, a certified insurance counselor. He's licensed in the insurance industry for more than 20 years and specializes in insurance needs for the medical spa industry. Jason, thanks for being here today.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. I actually wish I was there in studio with you. I'm sure down in Texas, the weather is a lot warmer than it is here in the state of Washington.
I guarantee it is right now.
I heard that hummus comment there, so I'm going to let that one slide.
It's the first thing that came to my brain. I mean, I've only been in Washington State for literally 20 minutes when I was in Portland, Oregon, and drove across the state line just because I'd never been there
To get some hummus.
Just to get some hummus, exactly. All right. Well, speaking of food, Jason, I'm going to hit you really up front, hard question. Then, do you have a preferred breakup food?
Oh, well, I have been happily married. My wife tells me I've been happily married for over 25 years now. So I have not really thought about a breakup food. But being here in the Pacific Northwest, I would probably have to drown my sorrows in some good seafood.
There you go.
So I
Yeah.
would probably go with some crabs, something of that nature.
There we go.
All right.
Smart answer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Well, let's get into it. I'd love to start just to have you introduce yourself a little more to the audience and talk a little bit about NFP.
Well, thank you. I was kind of collecting my thoughts before this, and I was realizing that I started in '96, and so I'm now celebrating my 30th year in the insurance industry.
Wow.
That kind of sneaks up on a person, I guess. I've spent the vast majority of that in being a commercial insurance agent, specializing in life sciences, most specifically clinics, wellness centers, medical spas, medical practices of that nature. For the last 10 plus years, I have been here at NFP. It's been a wonderful organization. We specialize in property casualty, benefits, wealth management, retirement services of that nature, over 110, I think we're over 110 countries now. And
Wow.
what really attracted me to the organization is their commitment to the life science industry. As I've been a part of it, we've been able to grow as the industry's been growing. And now we're one of the industry leaders.
That's very cool. So going into your kind of focused area, why don't you tell the audience about like the types of policies you help procure for medical spas and other medical practices?
I tell you, it sure would be nice if there was just one insurance policy that would cover all of the exposures that businesses have nowadays. But it does take a combination of a couple of different policies. First and foremost, you need to have a really good professional liability medical malpractice policy. I recommend that obviously to be in the name of the corporation entity that owns the business and has it lined up to cover all of the services as well as all of the staff. Another major policy that would be needed is a business owner policy, also referred to as a package policy.
Okay.
It provides the fire and theft for the office contents, equipment, tenant improvements, things of that nature, plus also the trip and fall general liability and other general liability type exposures. And then most medical spas have a staff, and so they would need to have workers' compensation coverage there to protect the staff. I would say those are the major ones. And then obviously it'd be wise for businesses nowadays to have some management liabilities, something like an employment practice liability policy that helps protect the business for harassment, wrongful termination, discrimination, maybe even some directors and officers coverage. And then nowadays, employee benefits are also very important.
Wow. And does NFP help with cybersecurity risk as well?
That is a great question. That is definitely an exposure that has been increasing. And the answer to that is yes. There is, I tell you, it's scary. It's as soon as you can think about a way a business can be jeopardized in a cyber attack, there's people out there thinking about ways to intrude a business of that nature, and having good cyber protection is very and highly recommended for sure.
Awesome. And then another question we get a lot is kind of on the compliance front. And I don't know if it's a separate policy or rider, but we, hear clients ask for, can they have coverage if they're investigated by a medical board or some other type of governing board? Are there those types of coverages available, and what do they look like?
Yes. Within a lot of the professional liability medical malpractice policies, they can have endorsements added on there, peer reviews, subpoena assistances, things of that nature. Yes. So you want to kind of make sure you're lined up with a good agent as well as a well-rounded insurance policy as best you can, something with the extra enhancements and endorsements that could be added on to that nature.
And final thought, it just popped in my mind because this could be different than cybersecurity, is kind of that exposure for a data breach, like a HIPAA related exposure. Is that a thing?
HIPAA is, yes. And I tell you, because of all the HIPAA requirements, it can be as simple as asking for a copy of your own chart and accidentally being sent somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something as that simple, and all of a sudden you have broken a HIPAA law or a violation there. And so having some insurance coverage for HIPAA violations of that nature is highly recommended and available. Something, again, that you would want to be added on to your professional liability medical malpractice policy.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, and kind of shifting as you might have heard in our intro, this season, we're focusing on the future of wellness. So when we use the word wellness, we're including longevity, weight loss, anti-aging. And I'd love to hear, with this kind of wave that's happening to you, to talk about kind of any malpractice coverage challenges and just things people should know about coverage. And we'll start with a specific one. I want to hear about medical weight loss, because that's been trending and a big service line that we've seen here the last 3 years or so.
Well, I tell you, that is definitely the buzzword nowadays, which is wonderful. People taking care of themselves is always very important. The industry always seems to have the latest and the greatest out there. And when it comes to insurance and coverage for wellness centers and medical weight loss and weight loss type services, one of the things is very important is to make sure that the products themselves are FDA approved. That is something that insurance companies are going to be asking first and foremost when it comes to these types of services. Are the products themselves FDA approved? And then secondly, kind of keeping it all big picture, the insurance companies are obviously going to want to make sure that the businesses are in state compliances and guidelines when it comes to that new medical weight loss service. They may have certain guidelines, they may have operator requirements, things of that nature. And it's obviously up to the business owner to make sure that they're in state compliances when it comes to these new medical weight loss and weight loss services.
And I'm curious what you've experienced, because it's still out there, and for a while it was the craze, but the compounding of weight loss drugs is a little bit, it's not the direct FDA approved. I mean, there's a whole conference. We've done episodes on this, but have you experienced pushback on coverage when a practice is wanting to compound their weight loss or prescribe compounded weight loss?
It's a great question. What I've been seeing from insurance companies who, generally speaking, react to situations is usually in a situation where the insurance company may specifically exclude a certain weight loss service and or have some sort of a sublimit and or limitations on operator. Like, for instance, they may require a nurse or an RN administer versus an esthetician kind of a thing. So yes, I have seen situations where insurance companies will basically say, we've had experience with this one particular weight loss product. We're not covering it, period. And they will specifically exclude that one service and operator, and related services having to do with it.
How often, obviously you're seated in one state, and I know you represent clients all over. How often is it different from state to state when it comes to acquiring different types of insurance? Is that driven by the state insurance commissioner, or is it driven by the insurance companies?
Well, state laws are always going to supersede the insurance policy. So it really is kind of derived by the states. We've been obviously dealing with a very unique situation where, like, for instance, medical spas, it's a great industry, great business, usually started by individual entrepreneurs, but in a lot of states, and that seems to be increasing, it's being dictated by the states that they have to be owned by a physician. Having fun with you, I have the pleasure of knowing a lot of physicians, none of which went through medical school for the sole goal of owning and running a medical spa.
Yeah.
So it makes a kind of an interesting conundrum there.
Sure. That makes sense. And so then going back to kind of where Michael kind of launched the first part of the question was just understanding how much the industry is always shifting. They're bringing in new technology, they're bringing in new lasers, they're bringing in new machines. And right now, especially in longevity and wellness services, peptides and HRT are a big push that a lot of different practices are trying to implement into their practices. And I won't have you go into the whole legal considerations, but love to hear what you're seeing from a coverage consideration.
It is interesting. The insurance companies that have been kind of dedicated to the medical spa industry have definitely pick and choose their policy forms when it comes to peptides and the HRTs. Some of them are willing to cover it. Some of them are not willing to cover it. The ones that are willing to cover it sometimes will do it via a sublimit. Most medical malpractice professional liability policies have a $1 million limit.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the insurance companies will say, hey, you're able to offer this particular HRT or peptides. However, it's now subject to a $100,000 sublimit.
Interesting. I'm curious too.
That is where it comes into a good relationship with your agent, because a lot of those things would get buried within the policy.
That's actually what my next question was. Like, I'm thinking about our audience out there that has their in their mind, they've got malpractice coverage, and it's probably not intuitive as they add service lines to wonder whether their malpractice is covered. What's covering those new services? Where can they find that on the policy, or what would be the recommended process or steps they should take to make sure they have that coverage?
Well, I chuckle only because it would be nice if the insurance policies were like books, a beginning, a middle, and an end. But it just seems like they're definitely broken into sections, and each section has coverages, definitions, exclusions, and things. What I would recommend is reaching out to your agent in writing and asking that specific question, because you're asking for a specific service to be covered. It's 100% legitimate to be asking your agent that specific question in writing. Is this specific service being covered and at full policy limits? And or also find out if there's any sort of a guidelines. As I alluded to earlier, some companies may say, yeah, you're covered as long as an RN administers it versus an esthetician, as an example.
Fascinating. So I want to move over, and you kind of started talking about this with the, doctors who are, kind of getting into the business of owning medical spas, but another role or another hat that is important for physicians is this idea of being a medical director or a supervising physician. And we see a lot of confusion, especially if you have kind of a medical spa that's properly owned but not physician owned, but they need a medical director, and they're trying to figure out, does their insurance cover the medical director, or does the physician's malpractice that they have for their day job cover them in that role? Talk a little bit about gaps that people should be thinking about, and if there's anything in particular for wellness, kind of comment on that as well. And I'd love just to hear your perspective there.
That is a great question. I probably one of the biggest gaps I probably wouldn't allude to as so much being a gap, more along the lines of misassumptions. First of all, I kind of made reference a little bit earlier. More and more states are requiring via state guidelines and laws that medical spas, for instance, have to be owned by a physician. If a physician has an opportunity to become a medical director or a supervising physician, they can't just assume that the business is within state compliance. They have to, ask the questions of that nature and make sure that the full business that they're about ready to be a part of, be medical director of, is within state compliance, first and foremost. Second, they don't want to just assume that their own individual policy will cover them for being an outside medical director. There's a couple of different ways to cover a medical director and supervising physician underneath an entity. One of the ways that I highly recommend is almost like the hospital philosophy. Big or small, most hospitals, if you're working on behalf of the hospital, either as a full-time, part-time employee, independent contractor, nurse, physician, whatever, if you're working on behalf of them, you're usually covered by the hospital policy. I usually recommend that, in which the corporation that owns and runs the business has the policy, and it makes sure that all operators, including the medical director, as well as all services, are being covered. Medical directors can obviously be covered for a couple of different capacities: strictly administrative, if that's only their role, and or including direct patient care if they are doing some of the aesthetic services and or the good faith examinations of that nature. I typically recommend having the medical directors being covered by the corporation's policies and get verification of that. However, getting standalone medical director coverage out there is available.
Is that where the term of art gets thrown out as an additional insured?
It's not so much, great question there. It's not so much being an additional insured. For most insurance policies geared towards the medical spa industry, within their definition of who is a named insured, it usually automatically covers administrative medical directors. Now, if that same medical director would like to be providing and have direct patient care coverage, then at that point in time, they're usually added on via an endorsement for that specific direct patient care coverage on behalf of that corporation at that corporation's location at the, on those corporations' patients.
So it sounds like it's really important when you're trying to add on that supervising physician or medical director that you have the conversation with your insurance company or your insurance agent as to what is that doctor's role actually versus administrative versus actually touching the patients, because obviously it sounds like there's a different type of insurance or a different probably policy you may need otherwise.
Yes, for sure.
And it's I think one of the things that tends to cause confusion is this corporate policy that you described is so different than what doctors are used to in terms of what their malpractice policies look like. They think of a policy that covers them for their services. And I don't know if you've run into any friction on that front.
A little bit, yes. I can tailor it however the business owners prefer to have it. I say it like that. There is a couple of different ways I make my recommendations, mostly because of life. People get busy, especially physicians. And insurance is a peace of mind factor until you need it, one of those things. Yeah. And so it's all about doing your due diligence ahead of time, getting into a good relationship, feeling good about it, and then doing the best job you can.
Right.
All good points there. So I guess we have time for one more question, Michael. And in this case, Jason, we're looking out into the future here, and with insurance, what are some of the changes you think they'll start making, or if at all, as it relates to wellness and aesthetic industry over the next 5 years?
Well, I would definitely see continued growth. And with that, I'm optimistic that the insurance companies, and I have been seeing that over the last 5 years, where insurance companies are a little bit quicker to react to more services, doing the due diligence so they feel comfortable about it. I mean, insurance companies love decades worth of research and things of that nature, but when we're coming out with a new service, they don't have that. Mm-hmm. And I applaud them for doing a diligent job of a new service, trying to figure out the pros, the cons, an adequate price point for that new service. So with that said, though, for sure, the industry is going to grow. I'm optimistic that more and more insurance carriers enter the aesthetic and medical spa industry. I welcome that. And there's always going to be the next latest and greatest service out there. That's what keeps us all going.
Yeah. A quick question, it just popped in my mind. So for businesses, medical spas or wellness centers that are multi-state, are you able to find a carrier that they can have as one carrier to cover them, or are you kind of dealing state by state on those types of coverages?
Great question. For the most part, yes. If they have multiple state operations, usually the insurance companies can tailor the insurance coverages accordingly, even if they happen to have formed separate corporations for each state. Mm-hmm. For the most part, as long as there is one common majority owner within the different state corporations, usually the insurance companies are still able to accommodate that.
Interesting. Well, that's awesome. We have run out of time. So grateful, Jason, that you for you joining us on the Legal 1-2-3s with ByrdAdatto. We are going to go to break, and then when we come back, Brad and I'll have a quick legal wrap up. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Well, welcome back to Legal 1-2-3s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd. And Michael, in case you forgot, this season our theme is the future of wellness. We had just a really great conversation with Jason, really understanding the impact insurance can have just in general for medical practice, but obviously we're doing a deeper dive into wellness. What are some takeaways that you had today?
One of the things that we've noticed, and actually was a big reason we wanted to bring Jason on this season, is that as this wellness craze is happening, I'll start with medical weight loss. I mean, for those who've been doing wellness, it's been around for a long time, but
sure.
The wave I would count as the last 3 years or so where it's really taken a hold. And what we've learned is practices would think they had coverage because they had malpractice coverage, and then learn that they were things like medical weight loss were excluded, particularly if they were doing compounding. And the same kind of concepts can apply to HRT, which has also been around for a long time. And then you get into these conversations about peptides and other things that are not FDA approved, and the risk of that not being covered goes up even further. And so I think the big takeaway is, if you're adding a service line, you really want to make sure you do your due diligence on making sure that risk is covered.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about this all the time about drifting out of compliance. Well, this is drifting out of insurance. Right. I mean, that's the best way to kind of think about it. You're completely insured and protected because in the day you started, you were just doing some fillers and maybe firing a laser or whatever it was. But as you've grown, you keep adding, as Michael said, more service lines, and you didn't realize that your insurance needs may have changed. That goes with employees and other people that you're adding, new locations, bringing in other doctors, you name it. All those are things that as you're doing this, not only is obviously working with your attorneys, but making sure that everyone else up and down the chain, your agents, your financial planners, and of course, your CPAs are aware of these changes. But Michael, that's all the time we have today. Audience members, we are back next Wednesday when we continue to explore the future of wellness, when we bring on to really learn about the financials with Jessica Nunn of Maven. Thanks again for joining us today. And remember, if you like this episode, please subscribe, make sure to give us a 5-star rating, and share with your friends.
You can also sign up for the ByrdAdatto newsletter by going to our website at ByrdAdatto.com.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.